So, good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday morning. Thursday before a long weekend. Family Day long weekend, of course, coming up. So, we wish everybody a happy and healthy long weekend. Before we begin today, you know, I I'm struggling with something. I'm struggling with what happened at Tumbler Ridge in British Columbia, northern British Columbia. Just a horrific time that I think is affecting all Canadians. And I remember speaking to Julian Wise about something that I had to do, and I had to speak at a funeral, a young person's funeral, a number of years ago, and he said, You're trying to make sense out of something that doesn't make any sense." And that's sort of the way I feel, and I think a lot of Canadians are in the same boat. And I just wanted to mention that because it's an important time for Canada, and we've got to realize that what happened at Tumbler Ridge is horrific, and I just hope it never happens again. And I feel bad for the everybody. I feel bad for the victims, obviously the families and the community and the province and Canada for that matter, because this type of stuff doesn't happen here. And when we look at it from a benefit perspective, there was obviously some mental health issues involved, and what we do is important work. And what we do is incredibly important work. And sometimes people need help and they need a lot of help, but we can certainly help with employee benefits. Anyways, I just had to get that off my chest. So, welcome to everybody for participating today. Thank you very much for joining us today. You're going to get a CE credit. Mike Ignatz is not here right now, but he's going to be sending out CE credits. We're going to give you a real short survey. Tell us how we did today. Tell us how we can do it better tomorrow. As well as that, we're going to sign you up. If you're not signed up for our Trusted Advisor newsletter already, you will be signed up for that, and you will receive that on a monthly basis. I think we're well over 150 consecutive months doing that, so we're excited about that. As well as that, during our presentation today, we are going to have a new feature, a polling feature. So if you've got your cell phone handy, you can take a picture of this QR code and you can participate in the polls. We did this on Tuesday and it was very well received. So we're excited about that. Joining us today from the Benefits Trust, Carrie Lane is in the house. Jordan Bullholes is in the house. Lindsay Gibson, Rob Crowder, and a special guest with us today. Where did she go? There she is. Sydney Shepherd is here, one of our part of our administration team in Fonthill, and she's joining us today. So thank you very much, Sydney. Again, if you don't have your camera on, if you could put your camera on, that would be great. And there's a face I haven't seen in a long time. Mark Etherington is in the house. Thanks for joining us, Mark. Good to see you. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to share my screen right now. Rob, if you could let me share my screen, that would be greatly appreciated. There we go. Share screen. So today we're talking about something that is talked about a great deal. Breaking the trend, the smarter ways to manage high cost drugs. Or sorry, not high cost drugs, high drug costs. It's not high cost drugs, it's high drug costs. I just need to adjust something right here. There we go. And that's what we're going to talk about today. It's high drug costs. It's not high cost drugs. There's a bit of a difference. And we're going to talk about a number of things associated with this. And I want to remind everybody as well, if you've got a question throughout the presentation today, please either raise your little hand emoji so it pops up on my screen, or put it in the chat box and one of our wonderful staff will be able to help you with that answer. But in addition to that, that way, if you put it in the chat box, certainly everybody can see it. But feel free to put up your hand emoji. We'd be happy to join in, happy to have you join in the conversation. Bit about today, we're going to talk about a little bit about the Benefits Trust, no, more so not as a commercial, but more so as where we're coming from. We want to talk about new realities. We want to talk about why are prescription drugs so expensive. Spend a little bit of time on that. Who pays for prescription drugs? Coverage options, prospecting ideas, and then, of course, question, answer, and discussions. We're going to finish right at 11 o'clock sharp. And if we do not finish up right at 11 o'clock sharp, you're happy to leave, but we're going to stick around for a few minutes after 11 if you want to carry on the conversation or get into something a little bit more specific. A little bit about the Benefits Trust. We started on January 1st, 1994, so we've been around for some time. We're a full-service third-party benefit administration company. We're the largest independently owned TPA in Canada. In 2024 and 2025, we've received a number of awards from our friends at Pension and Benefit Monitor magazine. top benefit provider, top employer, and just late last year was something we're really excited about. We won a top five-star technology award for our app primarily. And it was interesting because I was at the dentist actually yesterday. I had a crown problem and I went to the dentist and I had an emergency dental appointment. I was talking to the receptionist or the office manager and I was showing her our app and she was just amazed on how simple it was to use. So, anyways, it was great. But what we do is we provide custom employee benefit solutions for your clients. We sell our services through our distribution partners, which are professional insurance brokers located in Canada. We provide exceptional client service. That's what our advisor partners tell us, but also what the end user client tells us through surveys that we've done. We've got long-term relationships with all the major Canadian insurance carriers and service suppliers, and our target market is dealing with businesses, dealing with you, but dealing with businesses with really 1 to 100 employees. We'd have a number of clients that are larger than that, but quite frankly, in the province of Ontario alone, there's 450,000 businesses with 1 to 100 employees. So that's what our target market is, because that's for the businesses. So, as I mentioned, we're going to be having a couple of really quick polls done throughout the session today, three specifically. So if you can just grab this code here, just take a snapshot of it, and it's great because all you have to do is enter your bank account number and your password, and then we're ready to go. So it's as simple as that. Anyways, and it's not really the new reality. It's interesting when I was reviewing these slides for this presentation and we were putting them together, it was new reality, but it's not the new reality. It's just reality. And when we're talking about benefits, high cost prescription drugs are the reality. This is not a new phenomenon. It's been 10 plus years. Like I remember years ago when we were talking about high cost drugs, there were so few of them. Um, but now there's lots of them. And this has been a reoccurring theme at industry conferences and presentations in the last 10 years. And it still is today. As a matter of fact, my good friend Dave Patriarch at CGIB, and I don't receive any compensation for this, but I would encourage everybody to visit cgib.ca, their website, which is the Canadian Group Broker or Canadian Group Insurance Brokers Association. They are putting on a session. I think it's the beginning of April. I think it's April 1st or April 2nd or 3rd or something. But in Toronto, they're putting a whole day session on, and it's managing high cost drugs. These are industry trends. Like without a doubt, you're seeing this all over the industry. Articles written continuously in various publications, both online and print, and conferences. It's a topic that is very widely covered, and it's important because clients need to understand the risk associated with the cost of drugs. It's as simple as that. High cost claimants are expensive, and especially when we were saying we were working with, cases from 1 to 100 employees because there's 500 or 450,000 of those in Ontario. You take a 15 life case, as simple as a 15 life case, and all of a sudden you get a $100,000 drug. Uh, and it really turns the case upside down. And is it sustainable? And that's really one of the things that we're here to talk about. But one thing that really fascinated me when, again, we were putting these slides together and I was reviewing them. According to the private drug plans in Canada, this is a report that was done by the Canadian government from 2018 to 2023. 1 in 91 plan members had annual drug costs over $10,000 in 2023. 1 in 91. Okay, so you got a 15 life case. It's coming. It's coming down the pipe. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So let's look at it from that perspective. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And again, you've got a 15 life case, a 20 life case, a 25, a 30 life case, whatever it is. You get a $104,798 drug on that experience. And it's going to sting. It's going to sting big. And if you get two or you get three, it's going to be a problem. So I think it's important as advisors that we understand this and understand the scope of this because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So why are drugs so expensive? Why are these drugs so expensive? Well, It's interesting because they take 10 to 15 years and billions of dollars to get approved. And that's right, billions with a B, to get approved. Because what happens is drug companies essentially start saying, "Hey, let's solve this problem with the drug." And they start working, and they every time they start working on a new formula, they put a patent on that formula. Then they keep on developing those formulas, and then all of a sudden, hey, this isn't working, and they get rid of it. But they've already got a patent on it and so on, but they get rid of it, and then they get rid of it, and they get rid of it, and finally one shines to the very top, or goes to the very top, and it's tested and it's approved, and that could take 15 years to get to the approval stage. Well, a patent is only 20 years long, so they might only have 5 years or less to recover the billions or $1 billion that it costs to get that drug to the marketplace. And drugs aren't really priced on how much they cost to make, because the drug cost could be pennies, but it's how life-saving are they and how big the market is, whether there are alternatives out there, and what insurers and governments are willing to pay. But it's amazing when it costs $1 billion or more to get a drug to the marketplace, and they've got just a few years to recover those costs. Drugs are expensive. Like I said, it takes a number of years to get approved, and the manufacturer has a patent protection for usually 20 years. But again, they started the patent when they first started developing this drug. So before they can get this, available at your local pharmacy, it's going to take some time. It's going to take a great deal of time. So during that window, there's no competition and prices stay high. But once generics enter the marketplace, they drop by 80 or 90% because the cost of the pill is very tiny. So that's really why drugs are so expensive, but they got to get it when they can. It's as simple as that. They've got to get it when they can. So the question is, who pays for high cost drugs? Who pays for high cost drugs? Well, there's a number of people that can pay for high cost drugs, but the one thing that is clear is there's no magic. I hope you weren't coming here today to find a magic answer, because there isn't one. But who pays for high cost drugs is patients. The people that are prescribed the drugs, they pay for them. They pay for them out of their pocket. They pay for them with after-tax dollars. Hey, you get a prescription drug because you've got high cholesterol, you can pay for that out of your pocket. You get a prescription drug because you've got a cancer therapy or MS or Parkinson's, you pay for that out of your pocket. Private insurance companies, through employee benefit programs, can pay for all or a portion of that drug if that is available to that individual or their family. There are patient assistance programs with the manufacturer. Of course, there's the government program with Trillium. That was started in the Bob Ray days. Trillium was started in the Bob Ray days, primarily because the AIDS medication that was coming out was incredibly expensive, and people were dying. Primarily, men were dying on the front page of the Toronto Star, because they couldn't afford the drugs. So it was very public. So Bob Ray, among all the other premiers across the province of Canada, or across the country of Canada, pardon me, started provincial drug programs because, being somewhat of a socialist country, we didn't want people dying on the front page of the newspaper. So the Trillium Drug Program was born, and it's still alive today. So they can pay for certain high-cost drugs. As well as that, there are special access programs with the Ontario government that can pay for these drugs. But there's no magic answer. Somebody's going to pay for it. You're either going to pay for it or you're not, and meaning you're not going to take the drug, or someone's going to pay for it. It's either the patient, insurance, patient assistance program, government programs, etc. So when a patient pays out of pocket, if they don't have any insurance, they're going to need to pay for this obviously out of pocket. And the old expression, my grandmother used to say to me when I was a child, it was, save it for a rainy day. Well, guess what? The diagnosis means that it's raining. Now, someone might not have the funds to do so, or it's going to put their family or their lives in, financial ruin if they have to pay for a very expensive drug for a long period of time. It's interesting because then people are choosing they're making their decision based on financial reasons as opposed to prescribing reasons in their health. An example, a $30,000 a month cancer drug. This was my father actually many years ago, but he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And I think the drug was actually $36,000 a month. that he was prescribed, and he was talking to the doctor, and he was older, didn't have any insurance, and had some money for the rainy day, so to speak. And it was interesting because he was talking to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Yeah, you should take this prescribed drug because it may give you one extra month of life, right? One extra month of life, and you got to take this for 6 months." And he goes, "What's that month going to look like?" And they had a discussion about it, but my father decided that it wasn't money well spent. He'd rather see that money go to his children and grandkids than being spent to extend his life for 1 month that was going to be very uncomfortable and very pain-ridden anyway. So he decided against it. But it's interesting because it's a financial decision for based on a diagnosis. So patients certainly can pay out of pocket. Private insurance plans or employee benefit plans, employer-sponsored plans, the most common, employee benefits. That's what we're all here for, right? They may have, they may have a drug plan in place that covers 100% of drugs. There may be some cost sharing that the employee pays. There may be some deductions on their paycheck. They may have a copay, like an 80% drug, so the patient can still be responsible for large sums of money. Quite simply, you got a $100,000 drug and it's 80% coverage, you're paying that $20,000 out of your pocket. Again, that could be financial discomfort for the family. They may have exclusions, categories like weight loss, lifestyle drugs, etc. They may have plan maximums in their benefit plan. There may be drug formularies. Spousal plans may be available to pick up some of these costs as well. So it depends on the circumstances, but employee benefits can pay for some of these expensive drugs, and we all know that. Patient assistance programs, copay cards, copay assistance are used when the patient has insurance but still faces big copay. So using that $100,000 drug and a 20% out-of-pocket expense for the employee. So all of a sudden they're looking at patient assistance programs through the manufacturer. The manufacturer may cover some or all of the copay. The patient might just be responsible for paying, $10 per fill, for example, or $0 per fill. Depends on the patient assistance program that the manufacturer may or may not have available. But the majority of the claim is still paid by the insurer. So bridging programs are used when coverage is delayed or under review as well. They might get from the manufacturer again through the patient assistance program a few weeks or a few months of the drug. Well, all the paperwork is going through, but it keeps the therapy going while this paperwork is processed. And it's especially common for oncology and biologics. So when people are going through the approval program, potentially with their employee benefit program and so on, the patient assistance program can step in and help out. As well as that, they can just give, hey, you know what, you don't have any drug coverage or it's not covered under your benefit plan. We're going to give you free drugs. Compassionate programs are used when coverage is denied and there isn't any coverage available. The manufacturer supplies the drug at no cost. It's often tied to income if someone's in financial constraints, there's a clinical need and a lack of alternatives, the patient assistance program can kick in. But, there is navigation and paperwork that is required for this. And it's interesting because especially if the individual is by themselves and they don't have someone that's advocating for them, they have to reach out to the patient assistance program. They've got to get a dedicated case manager, their prior authorization support, help appealing all the stuff and coordination with doctors and pharmacies and insurers and so on. It is cumbersome without a doubt. And again, if somebody's in a somewhat of a traumatic state of mind because of a diagnosis and there's a lot going on in their mind and this also is a financial burden, and they're looking to get this drug covered because they don't have an extra few $100,000 kicking around, which most people don't, right? This is just another level of cumbersome, and especially if you don't have an advocate working on your side. Trillium Drug Program, again, started by Bob Ray years ago when he was the Premier of the province of Ontario. It's administered by the government of Ontario. We all know, many of us know about the program. It's designed to reduce catastrophic prescription drug costs for people and families whose drug expenses are a large share of their net income. There's a deductible. It's a means-based program. The deductible is 4% of after-tax household income, right? 4% of after-tax household income. So if your after-tax household income is $100,000, your household income is $100,000, you're paying the first $4,000 out of your pocket, and then the Trillium drug program kicks in. There's about 5,000 drugs on the Ontario Drug Benefit formulary. And if those drugs are not on the formulary, they're not covered through the Trillium Drug Program. There is a little bit of a delay, in my opinion, my words, a little bit of a delay or slow processing of Ontario saying, hey, we need to add more drugs to the formulary. It usually takes some time. So when a new drug comes out on the marketplace and someone really needs it, it's going to be a couple of years or more before it gets onto the Ontario drug formulary. But there is an exceptional access program through the Ontario government. But it's interesting because this program is available if it's not covered under the Trillium program, and it is a formulary, it's a drug that is medically necessary, but it's not you, the patient, that or your clients, the patient, that are necessarily going to be applying for this drug. It's going to be the doctor. Well, guess what? Doctors are busy. Doctors are certainly busy, especially when you're talking about oncology doctors and so on. Specialists, they're busy and they have many delays, and they will apply potentially, but it's going to take some time and it's cumbersome. So the approval is based on clinical criteria, certainly not income, but the patient must usually have to have failed a number of standard therapies that are available. So this is the last resort kind of thing. But again, the biggest stumbling block here is we're dependent upon our doctors. And, approval times are limited, they're time limited, and they must be renewed. But again, doctors are very busy, and sometimes this is the most cumbersome step. So those are the people that pay for drugs. It's either the patient, they pay for it out of pocket. It's an insurance plan. That's why we're all here. The the manufacturer can pay for it through their programs, potentially, and the government can pay for it through their programs that are available. So where do we fit in as professional advisors? Where do we fit in? And it's interesting because I was reading a study that Hub did. Hub did, and it was a North American study, so it was US based as well as Canadian based. And they were talking to a lot of their clients, and the thesis of this particular study was risk managers, corporate risk managers, are now getting involved in the benefits discussion. So the corporate risk manager that looks at the risk of a corporation is getting involved getting involved with the finance department, getting involved with the human resource department, and getting involved with the benefit plan because they're looking at it from a risk perspective, a risk management perspective. And I was thinking about that, and it was a pretty high level report, and it was talking about businesses that, you know, General Motors, for example, has got thousands upon thousands upon thousands of employees across North America, and they've got a risk management department that looks at all sorts of aspects of their business. But I was thinking about that 15 life case. So I'm reading this report about what General Motors is doing in North America, and then I'm thinking about the 15 life case that polishes widgets that we're dealing with, right? Because again, there's 450,000 of these in Ontario. They don't have a risk management department. At the Benefits Trust, if we look at ourselves as a prospect, there's 30 of us that work at the Benefits Trust, and as the president and founder, right, I'm kind of the risk manager. I might ask some questions of our finance department and so on, but I'm really the risk manager. So a lot of these clients don't have a risk manager. So they're not trained in thinking like a risk manager, maybe intuitive, but they're not really trained in thinking like a risk manager. And I think it's our job as professional advisors to be the risk manager for our clients and our prospects. We need to be the risk manager. We need to wear that hat, and we need to, it's a great way to add value. It's a great way to show our clients how we can add value by assisting them with the risk management. And I think it's important to advise our clients on the implications of each of those scenarios, whether the person pays for it out of their pocket, whether the person pays for it through a government program or a patient assistance program, or the insurance program. But we need to be risk managers, and we need to explain that to the client. And I think the best way to do that is to ask questions. And, those of you that have been on these sessions in the past, it's about asking questions, and it's about asking positive questions. and great questions. And what's the purpose of the benefit plan? What do you want to promise? A benefit plan is nothing more than a promise between an employer and an employee. So what is it that you client or prospect want to promise your employees? And you got to talk about risk and understand the risk tolerance. Do you want a plan that covers everybody for everything? However, the cost may double or triple depending on your claims activity. Oh, well, geez, I want to cover everybody for everything, but I don't want my costs to double or triple if all of a sudden somebody has an issue. So it's important that we talk about these types of risk scenarios. Um, and their answers are going to lead you to a plan that makes sense for them to promise their employees and their risk tolerance level. It's a balance. It's a balance between the two. Everybody wants, this is the magic answer. Everybody wants everything covered and they don't want to pay anything for it, right? Well, that's where the magic breaks down. There's no shiny thing over here and look over here. There's no magic answer, but it's important to ask the questions. So, when we look at benefit plan options, again, from a 30,000-foot level, and we're looking down on benefit plans, there's a number of options that we as professional advisors can advise our clients on. Well, you can have a fully insured plan, a traditional fully insured plan, and all the insurance companies sell these, with unlimited benefits, unlimited health benefits, which means unlimited health drug benefits, pardon me. Our friends at the insurance companies have put together an EP3, which we'll talk about in a moment, which is a funding mechanism, a sharing of the risk mechanism amongst the insurance companies and amongst the industry and so on. You can look at an ASO plan with stop loss, and we'll talk about that. We can look at putting drug maximums in place. We can look at high cost drug diversion formularies, Formulary Protect and Formulary Protect Plus. We're partnering with Claim Secure on that, and we'll talk about each of these individually. So when we're talking about unlimited drugs, do they want a plan that pays for everything unlimited? And it's great. A lot of people do that, and they say, "Fantastic. Yeah, we want that. We want that." But is it going to be sustainable for the client in the long run, especially if that $100,000 claim happens? Again, 1 in 91. They've only got 15, but 1 in 91. Those odds aren't the best. But what happens if it becomes unsustainable because of a large claim or a couple of large claims? So like I mentioned, we've got 30 employees at the benefits trust, or 35, or whatever the number is. But all of a sudden, we've got a benefit plan and we've got a 15,000, or sorry, we've got a 100,000 or $200,000 claim, or a few of those claims, and our costs are doubling and tripling. Hey, we're going to have to make some drastic changes. We can't afford those costs to double or triple. It's not in our business model. So we're going to have to change the benefit plan. But what's interesting on this plan is we run into, we're asked to quote on business all the time. And a lot of plans have unlimited drugs. And I think a lot of plan sponsors don't understand the risk. And a lot of advisors, or average advisors, or below average advisors out there, are just saying, "Yeah, we'll just match the coverage and away we go," right? Like it's they don't understand the risks associated with their plan, so they're being reactive as opposed to proactive. And it's hey, that's what we've always had. That's what we want to have. I haven't talked to the client about this, but yeah, okay, let's move forward. Like they're going to get themselves potentially in trouble. It's okay as long as the client understands the risks. The EP3 on the extended healthcare is, created to ensure affordability, uh, availability, and transferability of a group coverage, preventing employers from experiencing massive spikes due to a single employee's high-cost medication. So participating insurers put, all of their large drug claims above a certain threshold into their own pool. They charge for that pool, of course. They charge for that risk, but their idea was not necessarily to be able to, have this $100,000 claim on the shoulders of that particular client. All right. That's what the idea was. So they're going to say, hey, we're going to set a threshold, for example, of $25,000. And any claims over $25,000, that amount over 25,000 bucks is going to go into the EP3 pool with all the other clients. And then, over another threshold over and above that is going to be shared among the insurance companies. That was the philosophical design of this. Now, the question is, has it worked? But it's interesting because There are large amount pooling charges in a fully insured plan. There's the EP3 charges, and then there's the Canadian Drug Insurance Pooling Corporation charges uh, built into this. Built into this, right? So we got a poll right now. So just before we get to that, it's interesting. You got this fully insured plan, right? But is it fully insured and is it transparent? So again, click on this. This is live, right? Our extended healthcare plans truly shielded from premium increases with EP3. What has your experience been? Yeah, we've got a number of people responding, and everybody's saying no, they're not shielded. Anybody else? Let's keep going here. Anybody else? I don't know how many people, Rob, how many people are responding, just out of curiosity?
We've got seven so far. It says it on the top
Oh,
there.
oh, I can't see it. There's something
Oh, it's all
blocking
good.
it.
Yeah, we're eight, nine,
Yeah.
and all of them are at no
Yeah. And it's there we are, Ted. Like it's interesting because we did this session on
on
Tuesday
Tuesday.
of this week and the same response, same results, right? So it's interesting. Oh, there's a few that are saying yes. That's great. Excellent. Right. A majority of people are certainly saying no, that EP3 is not shielding people from increases. So the next questions, are plans portable when a high cost drug hits the plan? Our plan's portable. Can you move this plan? All of a sudden you got $100,000 drug. Can you move the plan? And we're seeing 7 people. Some people are saying yes. More and more people are saying yes. Yeah, again, the results are very similar, pardon me, to what we saw on Tuesday. Yeah, it was about a 75-25% flip. Oh, there's a little bit more here today. So, some people are saying it's working, and some people are saying it's more difficult. It's certainly more difficult. But it's a great discussion, to have. But the majority of people, in this case, 70% or 64%, as we go more, yeah, but are saying that it's difficult. It's incredibly difficult. It's not as portable as we once thought. Now let's move on to transparency of charges. Are pooling charges transparent? Do you know, or does your client know what it is they're paying for? Their large amount pooling costs, as well as the EP3 costs, as well as the industry pooling. Does anybody, can you explain it in a definitive way to your clients so they know exactly what it is that you are or they are paying for? And again, we've got 80% roughly and 20% saying no. And that was very similar to our session on Tuesday. So it's certainly very similar. So I thank you very much for participating. This is the first time we've used this in our session, and we were just experimenting with it. But we thank you very much for your participation. So moving right along, and we had 16 people respond there, 81, 19. So 80%, 20%. Awesome. ASO plans with stop loss. ASO plans are administration services only. The client is paying for what it is they use, no more, no less. But again, insurance is there to protect against catastrophic, sudden, unexpected events. So when setting up an ASO plan with an employer, specifically their drugs, because again, we can go to the pharmacy and get a $104,000 drug. One in 19 people are doing that. So why does someone want to make a promise that says we're going to cover, up to $1 million in drugs without having an insurance policy in place? So what a stop loss policy is, it's just very similar to large amount pooling. However, it just says, hey, great, any drugs over a certain threshold are going to be picked up by an insurance contract. It's as simple as that. It protects the employees with very high cost claims, and the employer pays the ASO amount up to that threshold or that deductible, right? And then the insurance company pays the plan the balance once that threshold is hit. So it's just like a high deductible insurance policy on your car. If you get in a parking lot dent at Costco on Saturday, yeah, you may not be running that through insurance, but if your car gets stolen while you're at the airport and it's a total loss, yeah, you're going to collect on insurance. So we look at it from that perspective. It's just a high deductible insurance policy that covers the promise over a certain threshold, the promise that the employer, the plan sponsor, is making to the employees that says, hey, we're going to cover your drugs. We're going to cover them up to our stop loss is $1 million. We're going to cover your prescription drugs. We're going to cover them up to a lifetime maximum of $1 million. And we're going to do that. That's what we're going to do for you. But we bought an insurance policy. They don't, the employee doesn't know this, but we bought an insurance policy in place to mitigate that risk. Any amount over that threshold is going to be covered by insurance. So, quite simply, an example of this, if an employee has a $180,000 drug claim and there's a $10,000 threshold, well, it's simple math. The drug is covered at 100%, in this case, $180,000. The employer pays the first $10,000 and adjusts their budget to make sure that that is taken care of. And the remaining $170,000 is picked up by insurance, right? It's a fully pooled insurance policy. So the threshold doesn't increase the next year or the year after that or the year after that. So it's not a shock loss product, it's a stop loss product. And in addition to that, it's fully pooled and the costs are completely transparent. It has a defined and transparent contract details. The contract details are included, and the client is making a decision to purchase this insurance at this particular threshold. It's a defined monthly unit rate. So it's easy to see. There aren't any additional costs to it. It's not embedded into the health rate. It's in the insurance costs, and it shows the true cost of this particular risk. As well as that, it's interesting. One of the things that we and others use when looking at an ASO plan is a pre-existing condition clause on drugs. And we've had a lot of feedback from advisors on this, saying you can't have a pre-existing condition clause, or that's not right, and so on. But when we look at a pre-existing condition clause on drugs, it's not there, uh, to get people not taking drugs. It's there to protect the employer. It's there to protect the employer. So as an employer, we hire people, frequently. We've hired lots of people over the years, and and I'm sure lots of you have been involved in interviews over the years as well with people, and you can't ask certain questions. You can ask a lot of questions, but you can't ask certain questions. So I can't hire a new customer service representative and say, hey, by the way, are you taking any expensive drugs, or is anybody in your family taking any expensive drugs, or what's the biggest drug that you're on that, how much does that cost? You can't ask those questions, right? Nor would you want to. But it's interesting because a pre-existing condition clause can, for example, limit somebody's claims in their first year to $5,000, and then then they're not eligible after that. It's just to protect the integrity of the plan. Because I could be having these 30 people that are wonderful at the benefits trust on our benefit plan, and then we hire somebody new who comes in with a $200,000 problem. This person all of a sudden hits the plan after a 3-month eligibility period because they are a good worker and they stick around. And then all of a sudden, 3 months and one day, they put in a claim and it's going to be a $200,000 claim for their spouse or for God forbid, one of their children or themselves because they're taking one of these expensive drugs. And all of a sudden, our costs are going to go through the roof. Uh, and do we want to make that? Do we want to pay for that claim and have to change the promise for everybody? So the pre-existing condition clause is there to protect the integrity of the plan. It's there to protect the plan sponsor. It's there to protect the employer. And it's interesting because we've explained this hundreds and thousands of times, or hundreds or thousands of times, not hundreds of thousands of times, but we've explained this many, 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 many times to employers, and they go, "Oh, that makes nothing but sense." We've never had any pushback. That makes nothing but sense. Drug maximums. We've got a number of plans when we've had or advisors have had or with advisors we've had discussions about plan maximums. And it's interesting because it's really whatever they want. What is the purpose of the plan? What do you want to cover? And it depends on the promise that they want to make, whether it's $1,000, $5,000, $20,000, right? But they just say, hey, you know what? We're not in the business of paying $100,000 drug claims. We're in the business of polishing widgets, and we want to give everybody, benefits and up to a certain level. So we're going to choose $1,000 in our drugs, or $5,000, right? Or $20,000, depending on what risk they can tolerate. But it's very easy to explain. It's very easy to communicate, right? It's very easy to budget for. Hey, great, we're maxing out at 5 grand here. Anything over and above that, then you either pay out of pocket, you use a spouse's plan, you use the patient assistance program, you use Trillium, you use the special access program. But we as a company are going to help you out with the first $5,000. After that, you're on your own. right? It's pretty easy. So drug maximums are certainly becoming more and more popular. But what happens when they hit the maximum? Well, when they hit the maximum, they're not just put out to pasture, so to speak. One of the things that we do is we help the employee or the family member um, when before they're going to hit the planned maximum with the patient assistance with the patient assistance program, with the Trillium program, with the exceptional access program. We quickly identify who it's going or who the person is, and we reach out to them and help them navigate these programs. So that's one of the services and how we add value is we help navigate when someone's going to reach. We see when there's a drug max of $1,000 or $5,000. We see the drug clients when they come in through our report said we've got them flagged, so a red flag goes up. Hey, this person's going to reach their drug max in the first 6 months or the first 3 months or the first month or whatever it is. Hey, then they need some assistance, and we're going to help them navigate through that next level of process. One of the things that we have found, one of the things that we have found when we help navigate through this process is people that are taking expensive drugs, people that are sick, are are looking for help. They're happy to receive the help, and they don't look at it too much like a burden. What they look at it is we need someone to help us, and we're their navigation arm, if you would. We're their navigation arm when we help them identify what the next steps should be and help them navigate through this jungle. And it's very well received by all of our clients and certainly by all of the people that are involved. What's a drug formulary? We talked about you can have certain drug formularies. Well, simply put, it's embedded. It's a list of drugs embedded into the drug promise, saying we're going to cover all of these drugs on the right-hand side of your screen, but the left-hand side of the screen, we're not covering those drugs. But these lists are determining which drugs are covered and which drugs are not, which drugs are eligible for coverage under a particular client's prescription drug plans. So, for example, we're seeing formularies that are saying, "Hey, great, we're going to cover Ozempic and those other drugs that are in that same class, but we're only covering them for on-label use." So, in other words, we're just covering them for diabetic reasons. We're not covering them for weight loss. Or we're saying, "Hey, we're not going to cover vaccines or fertility or habit breaking drugs or lifestyle drugs because of weight loss, etc." So it's just a formula saying we're going to cover these drugs and not those drugs, essentially. And the Ontario government, as I mentioned, under the Trillium program, has about 5,000 drugs listed, but there's 15,000 drugs out there. So there's, in this case, using that simple math, there's 10,000 drugs that aren't covered, right? So they've said that these are the drugs that are going to be covered. It's as simple as that. That's what a formulary is. So why use a formulary? Well, it's part of the larger plan design. The formula can help clients reach their benefit goals, and often business owners want to take advantage of programs that are available to all Ontarian residents. So, for example, we've partnered with our friends at Claim Secure. We've got a long-standing partnership with them, 30 plus years. And we use their formulary and formulary protect product. What that is it says, hey, we're going to cover all your drugs with the exception of drugs that are going to be in excess of $10,000 a year or more. $10,000 a year or more is their threshold. So they say, hey, great, we're going to cover you for all your routine stuff. I'm going to take a drug for cholesterol management tonight before I go to bed, and fantastic. That's covered. But if I need a drug for, God forbid, knock on wood, something that's significantly greater and it's going to be, that $100,000 a year, well, that's not covered. Okay, so what happens is it automatically then gets dumped into the uh, Trillium Drug Program, et cetera, or the government special access program or the patient assistance program through the manufacturer. So there are a number of things that happen when the drug is kicked. In this case, formulary and formulary protect or specialty drugs is defined by Claim Secure with an annual expected cost to be more than $10,000 a year. And again, this is a standard, assuming a standard dosing protocol, and things like, Humira are not covered or Remicade are not covered because they're more than $10,000 a year. It doesn't mean the drugs are capped at $10,000 a year because I could be taking, $9,000 of cholesterol medication, and I can be taking $9,000 of ingrown toenail medication, and I can be taking $9,000 of anti-flu medication or whatever it is, but that totals significantly more than $10,000. But no, not one drug is more than $10,000. So this is different than a drug cap. So again, $10,000, all of a sudden, boom, it's not covered. And that's where Formulary and Formulary Protect Plus come into play. And it's interesting because they've got the special access program, um, where Claim Secure reaches out and deals with the patient, or the member or the employee or the family member, whatever it is, deals with them and says, "Hey, great, this is not covered, but we're going to help you navigate through this process." So it's ourselves that are doing it, the Benefits Trust, but also we're using Claim Secure in this particular case when it's a formulary protect client, and Claim Secure has an incredible stable of people that helps people when they need it the most. And it is dynamite. It's called Coverage Navigation, and we encourage you to visit our website at thebenefitstrust.com, um, and check out under the Advisor Resource Center some of the past Zoomcasts we've done. We did a whole Zoomcast on Formulary and Formulary Protect Plus. So if you want to bring yourself up to speed, check that out. Dave Wochuk, Vice President at Claims Secure, was our special guest on that session, and just did a wonderful job explaining it and talks about their care navigation. But it's interesting in Ontario with the care navigation process when the drug was going to be more than $10,000. I think they had a 99% uh, success rate in getting coverage elsewhere. Um, so the care navigation service run by Claim Secure is, absolutely superb. But what it does is it helps um, the person, the patient, or it helps their advocate, but it helps them get through this process, and they like the help. So the approach is very personal, whether it's happening through the Benefits Trust with a Drug Max or the Care Navigation Program at Claim Secure. It's a very personal approach, and it's done on a one-off basis. You're speaking directly to someone. You got a person that you're going to be calling and in contact with, so you're not calling 1-800 help me. It's a really personal service and real personal touch. So it's important. Now, one of the things that's important to note when we're looking at this, all of these options are available, and they're optional. They're available on a per class basis, not only a per case basis. They're optional, or these options are available on a per class basis. So look at the groups within the group. You've heard me probably say that over the years is, what are the groups within your group? Well, you might have a 15 life case and there might be an executive or a business owner that's involved in that case. There might be a management group that's involved in that case, two or three key people. And then they might have a bunch of employees. So you can say, hey, great for the executive group. We're just going to have unlimited. We got stop loss in place. We're happy to pay for that. For the management group, we're going to put formulary protect in place. You know what? Because we want to pay for their drugs, we want to make it easy, but God forbid they need a specialty drug over $10,000. Great. We know that there are people in place that are going to help them with this and navigate this, and we're going to help them put it through. And then what we're going to do for the employees is we're going to put in $1,000 drug max or a $5,000 drug max, for the 10 employees or whatever the numbers are. So you can have different promises with different components built right into the plan design. So when you're talking about risk management, you talk about risk management for the company, but you also talk about risk management for the groups within the group. You talk about risk management for the executive group. You talk about risk management for the management group, risk management for the employees. And you can set up these plans according to what their requirements, their being the plan sponsor's requirements are, as opposed to, hey, yeah, unlimited drugs, and let's hope nothing happens because then they're going to have to face some pretty tough decisions. So it's about being proactive as opposed to being reactive. Um, and it's important to set up the benefit plan accordingly. But again, back to that hub report, it's about being the risk manager. Sometimes we wear a number of different hats, but we have to wear the hat as professional advisors of being a risk manager. Benefits are usually thought about for 30 minutes, 30 minutes a year. You got a 15 life case. Again, this 15 life case, you're out there, you're talking to the client, and they're talking to you, and they get about 30 minutes to speak to you a year about this stuff. You're just bad news with a briefcase in your hand when you come in and see them, or send them a Zoom invite or whatever it is. Because you're doing this at the time of renewal, and they spend about 30 minutes on it. They don't think about benefits on a full-time basis like you and I do. Um, so I think it's important to have a separate conversation with them another time, at another time about risk tolerance, right? And you can do this quarterly, you can do yearly, you can do bi-yearly every 5 years. Use it as a prospecting tool, but it's interesting because not a lot of people talk about risk management when they're talking about benefits. Krista Barzo was at a session that we did earlier in January, and Krista, was giving us some comments about it in the session, and she was talking about a question that her dad, Zoltan Barzo, um, used to ask a lot. He was saying, do you let, he was saying something along the lines, do you let the HR make million-dollar decisions on your behalf, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, Mrs. Prospect, right? Because sometimes these risk management decisions can be million-dollar decisions. So it's important to have that risk management discussion. And risks for employers change over time. You know, I can take more risk today than I took yesterday, but so I might do something tomorrow, build a new building, whatever it is, where I can't take a lot of risk. Or I'm beefing up my balance sheet because, I want to merge with somebody else. I don't want to take a lot of risk right now. So it's important to have risk tolerance discussions, with your clients, not discussions with your clients over time because their risk management or the risk tolerance level may change. And it's important to have them understand that benefits can change according to their risk tolerance levels at certain times. But think about this as a prospecting tool. This is a fantastic prospecting tool. Trust me, because we deal with advisors all day long, and I'll tell you, a lot of people don't ask these questions. But you can have a risk tolerance checklist. Create a branded risk tolerance checklist, right? A branded risk tolerance checklist, as simple as that. You put it on your letterhead, you create some things, you put some thought into it, and you can have this fabulous thing and say, hey, Mr. Prospect, Mrs. Prospect, I want to come and talk to you and I want to share with you our risk tolerance checklist. Oh, can you send it to me? No, right? But I want to come and talk to you about it and have a risk tolerance discussion about your benefit plan because you're making million-dollar decisions, and I want to make sure that you're aware of those decisions. And then you go through this risk tolerance checklist. They've never seen this before, never heard of it before, never been asked those types of questions before, and all of a sudden they're looking at you with rose-colored glasses on, and their advisor is, in the weeds. Fantastic. Create podcasts about risk tolerance. Create Zoomcasts or webinars, just like we're doing right now. Create blogs. Great 90-second blog, a 2-minute blog. Someone can read this. Great prospecting tool. But it's about adding value. You can add value around being their risk manager, being your clients and prospects' risk manager. You can add incredible value when looking at this. So remember, who pays for high cost drugs? It's not about drug management, it's about high cost drugs. Who's paying for these high cost drugs? Well, the patient is, the insurers, the manufacturers, or the government programs. There is no magic. And it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, right? So that's who's paying for the drugs. It's a combination of all of these things potentially, but it's our job to advise our clients on the risk associated with these drugs. So what's the answer? The only correct answer is to advise your clients on the options. And honestly, I don't believe a lot of advisors are doing this, right? But the only correct answer is to advise your clients on the options. Uh, and the answer is always going to be different from client to client. Everybody's got different risk tolerance levels. Everybody's got different risk tolerance levels at different business cycles that they are in. Like I said, hey, we don't want to take a risk right now. We're building a new office. Or, hey, we can take a risk right now because we've had, a couple of extraordinarily profitable years and we want to maybe play with the house's money a little bit more. Great. But it's our job as advisors to understand our clients' individual needs and risk tolerance levels. So the best way to do is ask the questions. Best way to find out is ask the questions and ask the right questions. It's interesting when you ask right questions, you get great answers. We had a discussion. I was with an advisor. We were on a call, and it was a prospecting call, and the advisor asked me to come with them on this call. And we started asking great questions like what's the hurt and risk, asking questions about risk tolerance and so on. But we had a 90-minute discussion. The guy gave us 30 minutes. but we had a 90-minute discussion. He kept on extending it. He kept on extending the time that we had. We spent 90 minutes together. And at the end of that 90-minute discussion, it was fascinating because he goes, I feel so good. I have never had a discussion this good about benefits. Like I feel so much more informed now. And we didn't talk about price, we didn't talk about proposals, we didn't talk about anything. But what we did at the end of this is we understood what his risk tolerance level was. We understood what his hurt was. We understood what his priorities were. We understood what his timelines were, all because of questions, right? It's not what it's not our answer, it's the client's answer. Our job is to ask questions, and a great way to ask questions and have discussions is about risk tolerance. So if you don't, someone else will. Have the conversation before it's too late. It's not a conversation that people have frequently, so I think you should have it frequently, right? It's refreshing. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. 1 in 91 plan members are going to have cost more than $10,000 a year. 10 years ago, that was 1 in 3,000. 10 years ago, 1 in 3,000. Today, 1 in 91. And those drug costs are $100,000 plus. You got a 15 life case, right? It's about being proactive, not reactive. When you knock on someone's door, there's no magic to it. It's about asking the right questions, right? Um, but it's our job to advise, and it's our job to ask the right questions. We've spent 56 minutes together. We thank you very much. Let me just stop sharing this, and let's pull everybody up here. And first of all, does anybody know the score of the Canada hockey game right now? 0-0, I think Tina was saying.
Yep, no score.
No score. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions, thoughts, ideas? Am I unhinged here? Am I crazy? What are your thoughts? What's your feedback? Anybody?
There's one question in the chat, Rob. I believe it was 1 second. Paul Scott was asking, what happens when someone hits the $1 million stop loss recovery, if that was going to happen in a small chance?
The answer to that question is, well, they're cut off, and then they would go to a trillium drug program, or they go to the special access program, or they would go to the patient assistance program. It's a great question, but it's never happened. It's never happened to us anyway. It's never happened to any of our clients. And I don't think we've had anybody that's come really close to that. They've either sadly passed away, or they, take the drug for a specific period of time and then they're done. But we haven't had anybody have one of those mega drugs that you hear about from time to time. You hear them from Manulife and Sun Life and so on, where somebody's got a $2 or $3 million drug. We haven't had that happen.
And
they're
if it
very,
was going to happen, we would know very quickly because once the
no,
first claim
yeah,
hits the plan, we'll see the frequency, and then we would start to proactively look at situations for that individual client as
yeah.
well.
So it's done on a one-off basis for sure. Just like a lot of the services that we offer. Simon, how many kilometers during this session?
Yeah. I don't know yet. I have to check. Probably about 5,000.
Probably 5,000 steps.
5,000 steps. Not
5,000 steps, multitasking. I love it.
Okay.
Any other thoughts, ideas, questions?
I want to just make a comment. I really appreciate the value that you bring to everybody here in lifting up the knowledge, and everybody has an understanding of how to deal with all of these challenges that people have from the drug side of it. But one of the things that we pride ourselves on is the fact that we are in a position to be able to encourage employers to encourage their employees to make good life choices about what they're doing and how they're living their lives. The things they eat and staying active and all of those things. And I'm not trying to brag because I'm standing on my treadmill here, but the reality of it is that all of these drugs are a reaction to something else.
Yeah.
What choices are we making? The food that we eat and the garbage that's in the food that's on the shelves in the stores, and we need to be so much more conscious. And we're in a good position to be able to really educate the heck out of employers so that they can encourage their employees, because when their employees are healthy, the drug costs go down, but it also increases their profitability.
Yeah.
So,
And Simon, you bring up a great point. It's about, the adding value. It's about adding value through education. It's about adding value through sharing of knowledge, and you're telling the client, or you're helping the client increase their profitability over time, which is great. Speaking of education, real quickly, I'm going to call on Sarah Becker right now. Sarah, tell us about the session you did yesterday and the next session that's coming up, because this is important for everybody.
Oh, well, yes, thank you. Catching me off guard. So the National Group Benefits meeting yesterday, we put on a presentation talking about transition checklists and the opportunities and the landmines that can come up as a result of transacting business between carriers, and how oftentimes we, as you had alluded earlier, you just think that you match the plan design and you transfer it over and it's done, but there's so much more to it. We don't actually have a session decided, but I believe it's May 28th. There will be
Yep.
more details that we send out following that to give more information on what will be involved in the education of that. So thank you for the
How,
shout
how
out.
can how can they find you? Oh, anyways, sorry, we'll come back to that because it's just after 11 o'clock. So thank you all very much for attending. On behalf of the Benefits Trust, we want to thank you. Mike Ignace is going to send you out a CE credit. You're going to get signed up for our Trusted Advisor newsletter. We're going to send you a survey. Please fill it out. It's going to be 60 seconds to fill it out. Tell us what you want to see next. And we thank you very much for your time. So on behalf of all of us, thanks for your time. We wish you good selling. If you want to find out more about the um, Formulary and Formulary Protect Plus programs, for example, it's on our website. We're also going to reach out to you and say hello, and happy to share any additional information that you might have. So thank you all very much. So we can stop recording, Rob.